Hi, Caleb from Brownells here, and in today's build we're going to be putting together an affordable precision rifle. So what does affordable mean when it comes to precision rifles? Well, just to kind of give you an idea, I'm going to be building this gun here, and assuming nothing's on sale, we're probably going to be right at $1,000, roughly right around there. And we could have actually done it at even lower cost, but I didn't want to use any components that I wouldn't actually use, if that makes sense. So most affordable as possible with decent components is what we're going for. And the whole thing hinges around, and what we'll do here, I'll kind of walk you through all the parts we chose and then we'll go over tools you need. But the whole thing is going to be built on these Howa Model 1500 barreled actions. These are Brownells exclusive, so if you want a Howa barreled action, this is the place to get them. They come already set up, they're super affordable, and the barrels on these, the reason we went with the barreled action is because these are actually really good barrels. These are nitrided, cold hammer forward. You can get them in different Cerakotes and stuff like that as well. And this one's a 6.5 Creedmoor, and it is threaded. You can get a number of different calibers and barrel lengths and things like that, but this is the one we're going with. Okay, so they also come with a trigger. They come with a 2-stage trigger. And you can upgrade these, but honestly, the triggers these come with are, again, really good. I like them, and they, if you know what you're doing, they're also adjustable. So that kind of frees up a lot of money we would usually burn up right there, because you can, this whole setup comes at the price of, or actually more affordable than some of the just actions out there. So the stock we're going to be dropping this in. This is the MDT, the Howa MDT Field Stock. So this is it's a polymer construction, but it has an aluminum bedding in it. So it's super solid. You get the same kind of the same precision you would get out of using a full aluminum chassis. But they basically just cut off all the extra and replaced it with polymer to make it more affordable, and it's still really sturdy and solid. And you have some M-lock options up front and the bottom for bipod mounts and traditional sling studs. So that has pretty much everything you need on it. Oh, also, talk about adjustments here. The cheek piece is quickly adjustable via the knob here. And then it also comes with spacers for you to customize your length of pull. So if you need it longer, that's no problem. Alright, so that's the stock. And because this stock is magazine fed, we're going to be using a Magpul P-Mag, and it says 7.62x51, so 308, but they also work for 6.5 Creedmoor. So that's our magazine. For the base, we went with a Tally aluminum 1913 base, so this will let us mount our rings. And for the rings, these are really affordable rings, very basic rings. These are the Leupold Rifleman's. And the only reason I chose these at this price point is because I've used these a ton in the past, and I've had really good luck with them. So they are cheaper, but I will say they definitely hold up. I shouldn't say cheaper, I should say more affordable, because there's nothing cheap about the way they're actually built. Okay, and then now we are missing an optic. We need an optic. Alright, so this one here, let me try to remember what magnification we went with. Alright, so this is the Vortex Crossfire II, and this is the 6-24x50. So the only downside to this is that it is a second focal plane scope, but there's really no way to save money on the optic without getting a second focal plane. You could of course jump up to a first focal plane scope, and but you are jumping up in price considerably when you do that. But this is, personally, this is the best optic at the price point for what we're doing. All right, now let's go over the tools we're going to need. Now, since the barrel and trigger are already installed on the action, the tools we need are going to be very limited. So I will say this, things like the base and the rings, they come with these little Allen wrenches here. And usually as soon as I get these, I kind of take them out of the box and immediately throw them away. I don't ever use them. The reason being, you can use them, but these are used on areas that I would highly recommend torquing to a particular specification. So we're going to use a torque wrench. I'm going to be using the Brownells torque wrench for this. Fully adjustable. We just set it on what we need and go to town. And with that, we will need a few different bits. I'll tell you kind of what size bits we need as we go through it. And I'll be working out. Yeah, speaking of bits, I'll be working out of the Fix-It Sticks Field Armor kit. But I'll tell you what size I'm using so that if you wanted to buy the individual bits as like Brownells Magnetips, you can do so. Alright, and then with our optic, the optic came with some scope covers here, some just basic lens covers, cleaning cloth, and then the scope, the sunshade as well. There's something on it here. And we'll probably throw this on just so I don't misplace it. And we'll do that at the end. Alright, so once we get this thing built, we're also going to take it out to the range and do some shooting, so make sure you watch all the way through. Alright, so the last thing you're going to need, and I'll kind of go through that while I get my initial setup done here, is going to be a beverage. I'm drinking coffee, as you can see, but you can also, if it's a little warmer outside, Kona Big Wave is really good. If it's a little cooler outside, Chimay is a great ale. But in all seriousness, try not to get super wasted while working on guns. That's drinking and working on guns is terrible advice. Just know that this was all for satire. So let me now get the bit we need. All right, I think, yeah. So for the action screws in the stock, you're going to need a 3/16 driver, and I will point out too. These stocks come with your action screws, and they're held in by little temporary, like plastic nuts in here to keep them in place. And I'll show it to you once I get it out here. And then once you get it out, your screws will come out. But they just secure them for shipping, just like so. Alright. So you just set those aside. You can throw them away if you want. You're never going to need them again. And then you take out the rear one. You should only have two. Alright, and then that one will come out. And the rear screw will actually stay in place because it's held in by the trigger guard. It just has a little window cut there so you can get to it. So just leave that there. It's fine where it is. Alright, now what I'm going to do is, I guess I will start by taking my action here. And I did take the bolts out my action. It's just sitting over here on the table. I'm going to place things out of the way because that whatever beverage you chose, you don't want to spill it or drop parts into it. Ask me how many D10s I've dropped into a coffee cup over the years. Ask me how many times I didn't find out till I was almost done with the coffee. Alright, now you can just lay this on a table. Also, we're going to be using a vise for some of this. It's completely optional. You can do everything without a vise for this build, which is very handy. But just take your action, put it upside down on the table. And a good point of reference here is the trigger. Just drop the trigger through the trigger guard. And it'll seat, and it'll move kind of back and forth a little bit here. Alright, now what we want to do is take that front action screw. We're going to start screwing that in first. Alright, so now the torque for these action screws is going to be, you can torque them, the recommendation is anywhere between 35 to 45 inch-pounds. I'm going to go with the high side of that. I'm going to stay at 45 inch-pounds. So we're going to set our torque wrench to 45 inch-pounds. Then we are going to take that driver I mentioned. And we're not going to go full torque just yet. We're going to drop this screw in here. And I'm going to tighten it down until it stops. And then just kind of, I'm literally not even putting any torque on it. I just tighten it down until it stops. backed off slightly. And then I'm going to move to the rear screw and do the same thing. Alright, and then back off slightly. So now I know both screws are in the hole, and then I'm going to tighten down that front screw, just like so. And I'm going to do the same thing with the rear. I'm going to come back to the front and just hit that rear one more time, and we're good. That's all you got to do. On those action screws, you don't need any kind of Loctite or anything like that. Just torque is fine. And now they're torqued down. So we're good. The action is in the stock, and we can move on. Alright, so since we're at this point, I'm going to go ahead and put this thing in the vise here. And I'm just going to grab it at these front rails. And I'm going to turn it. I'm actually, you know what? This will be less convenient for me, but more convenient for you. I'm going to grab it by the barrel and turn it towards you a bit so you can kind of see what we're doing here. The whole point of this is for you to see what we're doing here, so I may as well set it up so you can see it. Alright, now we are done with this bit. That was the only thing we needed it for. Alright, so now we're going to back this torque wrench off, and I'm just going to drop it down to, let's call it 18 inch-pounds. That's 20. That's 18. Okay. So now I got to get this base on here. So I'm going to get my screws ready. And it's important to pay attention to your screw lengths in most cases, because, like, for example, on your Remington 700 style actions, those screws are typically different lengths. But on this particular base, with this Howa action, all the screws are the same exact length, so we don't have to worry about that. Alright, so now you got to make a decision on Threadlocker. You can go no Threadlocker if you want, but this is somewhere I would recommend some. You can use blue, which is the medium strength, but I'm going to use red because it's the high strength, and I don't want the base, I don't ever plan on taking this base off. Not to say that red is permanent, but it is recommended to use heat to take these off. Now, what I like to do is I'll use this little baggie here. I'm going to take a little bit of this Threadlocker, and I'm just going to put it on the bag. Now I'm going to determine what size this is. That looks like a T15. And, was I right? I was, yeah. I grabbed a T10 first. It looked a little small. Thought I grabbed a 15. So T15. And if your screws are absolutely, like, if they come just soaked in oil, degrease them. But if not, and if they don't, if there's like no visible oil buildup on them, I don't really worry about it. Although it is typically recommended to degrease your screws, but these don't look too bad. Alright, so typically I would set this on here, but since I have it at an angle, it'll fall off, so I'll just wait. But I'm just going to take one screw and put just enough on there to kind of go on the screw itself. But we don't want it to be dripping because we don't want it dripping all down into our action and such. And I'll just pick a spot for it. We'll start with the front one. And I'm not going to fully torque anything until all the screws are installed. We'll repeat that. Do the rear one this time. And we'll just kind of stagger it. Go back to the front. and back to the rear. Perfect. Alright, so now I'll just come to that front one, torque it down, the rear, the front, and the rear again, and repeats that once. There we go. Alright, now we can start mounting the optic. So we need to get our rings on there, but before we do that, we need to determine where this optic's gonna go. And I'm gonna put it vertical for this so I can kind of see what's going on here. Okay. Now for this, again, we're no longer gonna need this bit. We're done with this T15. And next we are going to use, let's see, a 7/64. So there you have it. And just kind of take your scope. And we're using, so I should have mentioned this before, but we're using medium rings here. Low is going to be too low. You can't use lows. But you could use highs if you wanted to. And if you used highs, you'd have a little bit more options on scope placement. But your optic would be even higher to the center line of the bore, of course. And yeah, about right there is good. So that gives us plenty of options. All right. So I'm going to take the tops off of these rings. And these are, of course, 30mm rings because that is a 30mm tube on that scope. All right. All right, put one there. And where was I? One there. Oh, I should mention, so as you notice, there's a little bit of play front and back on the rings. Push them forward all the way and then torque them down. All right, and now what we can do is set our scope in. And it actually clears almost all the way up. I'm going to put it about right there. At this point, you would want to go ahead and check your length of pull and your eye, or not your length of pull, but your eye relief. So get behind the scope, make sure the eye relief is good for you, put it on the minimum power, crank it up to the maximum, and make sure you still have a full view of that image whenever you're comfortably behind the rifle. And if you can't get the scope close enough forward, or it's just uncomfortable, of course, to shoulder the rifle, then you can change your length of pull. And if your cheek's too low, of course, just raise it up with the riser. Alright, so now what I'm going to do, I'm going to put these ring tops on. And what I'm going to do is start a screw in on this side. But as you can see, when I did that, I pinch down on the opposite side to create a big gap, the biggest gap as possible. Now I'm going to screw this screw in, closing that gap, and the gap's opening up on the opposite side. So I'm going to screw it in until the gaps are about equal. And that's because I like to have equal gaps on both sides of the rings so that it looks like a professional did it. Alright. Then put the screws in on the opposite side until they contact. Okay, so now my scope is on. It's on there loose, but it of course is not level. So there are multiple ways to level a scope. I'm going to be using this Arasaka tool, which is completely optional. It just speeds things up. If you don't have that, what you want to do is level the rifle first. So you can level the rifle by getting a bubble level in there on that rail. And if you have like an actual straight edge, like a real like metal ruler, you can lay it on there and then set the bubble on, level the rifle. Once the rifle's level, use that same straight edge and come off the bottom of the scope, because that's the most level part to your crosshairs is going to be that bottom surface. Put the level on there and level it again. We've done it in the past on previous builds, so if you need help with that, go check out those, and that'll kind of give you an idea how to do it. But honestly, these two pieces of precision machined aluminum here saves so much time, because all you got to do is put it in right side up, of course, lay it in there, and then you take the angled piece and push it in, and this one's going to be really close. So because this side is contoured and it's so close, I have to do it from this side. I don't have a choice. There it is. That's level. Now I need to torque it down. And again, just making sure you keep your gaps even here. And we're still at 18 inch-pounds. Okay, now you can remove your leveling tool, which may be a little tight in there after you tighten it down. So you just pull that sucker out of there. And I may have to recheck the torque on this one because it's tight on the tool. I'm going to loosen just my rear ring. And then torque it back down. And that front ring was holding it, so I don't have to worry about re-leveling it, so it's good to go. And I'm just going to kind of eyeball that level here. Yeah, that looks good. If it looked like it was off a little bit, I would have double checked it with a bubble level, just because of the clearance issues we had with this tool. But even though it was close, we're good to go. Okay, let's put our bolt in and do a function check here. Alright, and these Howas do have a 3-position safety. If you're not familiar with that, it can be confusing. So, all the way in the rear position locks everything. So the bolt's locked too, you can't lift the bolt. The middle position, the safety's still on, so you can't fire, but you can work the bolt. And then the front position is, obviously you can work the bolt and it's full on fire. So it is a 2-stage trigger. That first stage is pretty light. Then you have that second stage. And then I like to test it on both of my safeties. Then I'll take it off of safety. And something I like to do, especially make sure you have a rubber butt pad if you're going to be doing this on the floor like I am. But I'll just take it and I'll bounce that stock off the floor. And this is just a general safety check, right? I didn't hear a click. Then I'll do the same thing on both of my safety settings. And this is something I do after I do trigger jobs on guns as well. Alright, and it passes that test. Put it back on safe. We will test fit our magazine, make sure that fits properly. Like a glove. Perfect. Alright. Now, the only thing left to do, and I said I was going to put this sunshade on there just so I don't lose it, so we'll screw that on. But now, the only thing left to do is to jump out to the range and get some rounds on target. See if we can stretch this out to our 500 yard. And go from there. Alright. So, if you have any questions or comments, or if you've built a Howa rifle, let us know in the comments down below. We'd love to hear from you. And as always, if you need help with anything for any reason ever, feel free to give us a call on the tech line. We'll be happy to help you out. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.